Hare Krishna. Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the second chapter, contents of the Gita summarized, verse number 21. Veda vinashinam nityam ya enam katam sapurusha partha kam ghatayati hantikam. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Ho. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. So this is a often debatable topic, capital punishment. Is it right or wrong? And there is equal lobby on both sides. Some people feel that capital punishment should be abolished, and some say that yes, it's justified. So here we know exactly what our scriptures say. Manu Samhita is the law book that our country regards in high esteem. So Manu Samhita says that a person who has committed murder, which is a very grievous sin, such a person should be punished by capital punishment, should be killed. And what is the reason for that? It is because that if that person, if that sinner, if that murderer is killed by law, then he has atoned for his sin, meaning he got punishment for his sins. Therefore, his next birth, he does not have to suffer for that sin. You understand the point? If there is a murderer who has killed somebody, definitely that's a sin. So in this life, if he gets a capital punishment and if he's hanged or killed by the law, then he has already paid for his sins. In Hindi we say hisab chuka diya. He's paid for his sins. So in his next life, he can start fresh. He does not have to pay for the sin that he committed in the past life. So capital punishment is therefore a great act of compassion. You're saving that person from suffering for that sin in his next life. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice. And thus Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is no violence at all, because at any rate the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge, so there is no possibility of sinful reaction. See, our Shastras are very clear about the integrities of karma. Killing a person is a sin. It is a sin if you're killing for your personal benefit. It is a sin if you're killing to settle your personal account. While a soldier in an army, he is at the border and he is killing the country's enemies. Such a killing by the soldier is not bad karma, because the soldier does not have any personal agenda to settle with the enemy soldier. He is just doing his duty. Similarly, Arjuna now, in the beginning of the war, Arjuna lamented that he does not want to incur sin by killing all these people because they are his own family. Killing one's own family is a sin. However, now when Arjuna kills, he does not get any sin because he is just following the instruction of Krishna. That is a difference. See, the act is same. The act of killing is same, but what is the motive behind killing? That is what determines the karmic reactions. It is not the action per se, but it is the motive behind the action that would give you the karma for it. Now we move on to the verse number 22. वासांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णाति नरोपराणि तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णान्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि. As a person puts on new garment, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Purport: change of body by the atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. Even the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart, have to accept continuous changes of the body, which appear from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth and again from youth to old age. From old age, the change is transferred to another body. This has already been explained in the previous verse 2.13. Transference of atomic individual soul to another body is made possible by the grace of Supersoul. The Supersoul fulfills the desire of the atomic soul as one friend fulfills the desire of another. The Vedas such as the Mundaka Upanishad as well as the Shvetashvatara Upanishad compare the soul and the supersoul to two friendly birds sitting on the same tree. One of the birds, the individual atomic soul, is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other bird, Krishna, is simply watching his friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree, while the other is simply witnessing the activities of his friend. Krishna is the witnessing bird and Arjuna is the eating bird. Although they are friends, one is still the master and other is the servant. Forgetfulness of this relationship by atomic soul is the cause of one's changing his position from one tree to another, from one body to another. The Jiva soul is struggling very hard on the tree of material body, but as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as a supreme spiritual master, as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntary surrender to Krishna for instruction, the subordinate bird immediately becomes free from all lamentation. Now here the atomic soul, individual atomic soul and the super soul's relationship is mentioned. As I said before, they are friends. They always join together. They're always together. The Atma and Paramatma move together from body to life. They're always together. And a good example is of that of two birds sitting on the tree. One bird is jumping into different branches and eating the fruits, and the other bird is quietly watching the jumping bird. Krishna is the watching bird, the Paramatma in our heart, and the jumping bird is the Atma, the individual soul. After many trees, many bodies, the individual soul keeps on hopping, tasting the different fruits till it gets tired and frustrated. Then it turns its head to the Paramatma, the other bird. The two bird, one is looking outwardly into the fruits of the tree. When after many, many lifetimes, when that bird is tired, it turns its head around 180 degrees and looks at the other bird, which is quietly watching his friend. That quiet other bird is the Paramatma. The moment when the head turns 180 degrees to face the Paramatma, that is when the spiritual progress happens, and that is the beginning of liberation. Right now, we are like the jumping bird moving from one branch to another. The material world is full of lights and attractions. The material world, Maya, is expert in attracting us. That is the work of Maya. Krishna has given that work to Maya. Go and seduce all these living entities. Go and keep them busy. Go and attract them. And that's what Maya is good at doing. So, as individual souls, like the bird, we hop from this body to another body to another body to another tree to another tree. We are so busy tasting the Mayic fruits while the Paramatma is quietly sitting and watching us. At the time of death, we go into another body, and guess who guides us? It's the Paramatma. It's that other bird, the Paramatma, the friend, the eternal friend of the soul. That bird guides the soul in its forward journey, which body to take, because that bird is forever witnessing us. It knows all our desires, even the deepermost desire that even we don't know in our subconscious mind. That bird knows, that Paramatma knows everything. Therefore, when it's time to leave this body, the soul, the individual soul, is guided by the Paramatma to the next body based on that bird's, that Atma's desire. So the Paramatma is forever the guiding friend of Atma. In both the Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.2 and Shvetashvatara Upanishad 4.7 confirm this. Samane vrikshe purusho nimagno nishaya sochati muhyamana jushtam yada pasyatyanyamisham Asya Mahimanamiti Vitashoka. Quote, although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or the other he turns his face to the friend, the Lord, and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. Unquote. Arjuna has now turned his face towards his eternal friend Krishna and is understanding Bhagavad Gita from him. And thus, hearing from Krishna, he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and be free from lamentation. Arjuna is advised herewith by the Lord not to lament for bodily change of his old grandfather and his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight so that they may be cleansed at once of all reactions from various bodily activities. One who lays down his life on this sacrificial altar or in the proper battlefield is at once cleansed of bodily reaction and promoted to a higher status of life. So there's no cause for Arjuna's lamentation. That was verse number 22. So here again, as I said, the relation between Atma and Paramatma are explained. So Arjuna has now, like a bird in the tree, Arjuna has turned its face towards Paramatma, Lord Krishna, who was present in his chariot, and Arjuna should not feel any compassion for killing his grandfather or his teacher. In fact, he should be happy because when a person dies in the battlefield, immediately all his past reactionary karma, all his past bad karma, prarabdha, they are all vanished. They are all immediately finished. So his next life will be very elevated. It will be in a higher plane. So that calls for rejoicement and not for lamentation. So Arjuna does not have to really lament because he's doing a favor to his grandfather and his teacher by killing them in the battlefield in the Dharma Yuddha. All the warriors who died in that Kurukshetra war, they all got free from their past sins. Number one, because they died in the battle. Number two, because they died in the presence of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Because of these two reasons, every single person who died in that battlefield, including the animals, they all got free of their past sins. So Arjuna does not have any reason to lament. So that was Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter number 2. Thank you so much for being there and for listening. Hope you've understood something and benefited in some way. Please feel free to share this channel and please subscribe to it. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. See you next time. Till then, Hare Krishna.